Did you know that you can decide not to develop injuries and pain as you age? There are some simple things you can do now to avoid a lot of musculoskeletal pain in the future. Why are more people not talking about this? You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 249, Choose Not to Have Injuries and Pain. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for forward-thinking women who know it's theoretically possible to get to the other side of menopause without developing the standard list of chronic diseases and limitations, but aren't totally clear about how exactly to tip the odds in their favor without a live-in staff of experts on retainer to optimize every aspect of her health. You can do it, and you don't have to be rich and famous to get there. Let's get started. Hey, and welcome to another episode. I'm so glad that you're here with me today. Have you had any cheat days this past week? Hopefully, using cheat days as a way to examine your attitude about healthy behaviors is helpful for closing the gap between who you're capable of being and who you're actually being. Today, we're going to talk about something that's so important for your personal plan to be powerful for many decades to come. Part of this life is the occurrence of accidents and injuries. We never know what might happen. We might step on a pine cone and roll our ankle. We might cut our hand while pitting an avocado. We might fall down and drop a 165-pound barbell on our arm. Been there. We might be one of those people who is texting on their phone and accidentally falls down an open manhole. Did you see about the lady who got crushed to death by a Taco Bell sign? Awful. But did you know that a lot of accidents, especially orthopedic type injuries, are preventable? Like way more than you'd think? A ton of things that we either think are just bad luck or are evidence that CrossFit is inherently dangerous or that distance running always eventually leads to injuries are actually preventable. For real. You might not have to forever have a bum knee or a delicate shoulder. Whether you end up getting a knee or hip replacement is not like getting your number drawn out of one of those big bingo cage things. Of course, a lot of things do happen by chance, and I'm not blaming anyone who has been through the excruciating pain and demanding recovery of any kind of injury or joint replacement. But we definitely have a lot more control over our orthopedic longevity than we're led to believe. I'm a pill girl. Well, that sounds weird, but you know what I mean. And it's so obvious to me that there are so many options for changing course before we have to end up on a lot of medication to manage chronic conditions. And it's annoying/infuriating to me that more people aren't told about their options, even when trouble is obviously brewing. We, as a medical community, just wait for things to get worse until they're, quote, bad enough to warrant taking the pill. It's ridiculous. But the same thing happens with orthopedic stuff. Maybe even more so. There are limited cases where the doctor will tell you that if you eat less salt, you might not have to start taking blood pressure medication. That's rarely the answer, though, by the way, but at least it's something. But the physical, mechanical, orthopedic stuff, almost never. It's the craziest thing that leads to a lot of surgeries and worse, a lot of unnecessary pain. And maybe, this coming from a girl that's been lucky enough to have a pretty pain-free life so far, maybe worse is the amount of limitation on motion caused by all of this. Back in episodes 28 and 57, we talked about how movement nourishes every cell of our bodies. How as a society, we're experiencing a collective atrophy of movement and how that is starting to trap us in a box where we can no longer move through our entire range of motion anymore. And how we start to suffer the negative health effects that happen to astronauts in space when we don't move often enough. We know that the more we move, the more capable we are of moving. Move it or lose it, right? Motion starvation is a problem that most people don't even know that they have. But back on topic, as we get older, we get better at accepting some pain that is intolerable to us at younger ages. I think that's actually a good thing and comes with some wisdom. But a lot of the injuries and pain that we consider inevitable in old age is not. And the answer isn't more supportive knee wraps, more ergonomic keyboards, higher arch supports in our shoes, or chairs with taller back supports. Really. In his book, Pain-Free, anatomical physiologist Pete Egoscue says, pain is not a reflection of the body's inferior design, nor are pain and dysfunction the price we must pay for growing older, being women, jogging, swinging a golf club, or holding certain jobs. On the contrary, the body is responding in strict accordance with the logic of its own musculoskeletal heritage. What's illogical is that we ignore the body's design as we go about our daily lives and submit to medical treatment. Our musculoskeletal system would work just fine if only we would let it." End quote. Pete Egoscue has a whole treatment system, I guess you'd call it. I did 3 sessions with a virtual Egoscue therapist in Las Vegas about 6 years ago or so, maybe a little more than that actually. So I got a little firsthand experience with an Egoscue clinician. The whole Egoscue program and philosophy are based on his premise that everyone's body requires the proper alignment of our 8 load-bearing joints: shoulders, hips, knees, and ankles. Dysfunction starts to creep in when there are non-parallel lines between those joints. Deviation from the standard design of the body is the source of pain and incapacitation. Researching this more on my own for the past few years, I'd say that the world-class experts in this space say it's less about proper posture and more about how well you're able to control force. It might be broadly true for most people that certain misalignments are dangerous, but every risk is individual based on how that particular person is able to control their motion and absorb force with their body. Most people have non-parallel lines, much more so now than 50 or 100 years ago. I do. The abnormal has become the new normal. Pete Egoscue believes that most chronic orthopedic conditions and injuries can be prevented. Hip replacements, knee replacements, arthritis, back pain, bad backs, carpal tunnel, bunions, sciatica, TMJ, bursitis, frozen shoulder, tendinitis. The list goes on and on. Not only that, but most injuries can be prevented. Not death by Taco Bell sign, obviously, but rotator cuff tears, ACL tears, tendinitis, bursitis, back strain, etc. Pete Egoscue says tendinitis is not a diagnosis as much as a vague observation that you have swelling and pain. It's not a disease that you can catch like TB or the flu. It's not something you're genetically predisposed to or comes about by accident. It's a symptom of musculoskeletal misalignment. And carpal tunnel syndrome is not caused by what we do with our elbows, wrists, or hands. It's caused by what we don't do. They do not have access to the nuanced muscle power and biomechanical interaction required to stay healthy. There is no substitute for those functions. None. And this is one of my favorites. That's why the ergonomic redesign of the workplace and of garden tools, toys, and mattresses borders on fraud. Installing a wrist brace on a keyboard or raising the surface of a workbench only shifts the excess friction to another location in the worker's elbow, wrist, or hand. Ergonomic palliatives are just as deadly as overdosing on painkillers. End quote. Okay, I like him and I think his work can be life-changing, like literally, but even I think that that's a bit heavy-handed. You're saying that my purple mouse pad with the little gel bump to rest my wrist on is equivalent to melting OxyContin in a spoon and shooting it up? Should we start a campaign to remove ergonomic chairs from offices? And heaven forbid, don't let your child go to a friend's house to play if they have a wrist rest at their keyboard. You don't want them to be exposed. The new slogan can be, heroin, ergonomic furniture, pills. It all kills. It's a little silly, but his point is that daily tasks are being unfairly blamed for causing injuries that are actually a result of musculoskeletal misalignment and motion malnourishment. The good news in all of this is that understanding the basic root cause level issue gives us so much power over our musculoskeletal future. And almost no one is telling us about it. It's like there's a whole industry making millions or billions of dollars on braces and insoles and wraps and rubs and tools and treatments and pain medication and uber high ticket surgeries. Oh, wait. So, what can we do to be abnormal and decide not to be one of the 35 million Americans with chronic musculoskeletal pain? To not have our nutritive motion restricted as we wait till we're, quote, bad enough to qualify for orthopedic surgery. Here are 4 takeaways that I've come up with that I think will help you drastically reduce your chance of future injury and chronic pain both now and in the future. Number 1 is to recognize that the site of the pain is very likely not the source of the problem. Hard to believe that an excruciating knee, especially one that shows clear diagnostic criteria upon imaging, is not the problem. I mean, yes, it is a problem, and I want you to feel great, but it's not the source of the problem. It's a symptom of something bigger. Developing the skill of seeing the forest, not just the trees. Is that a thing? Do you know what I'm talking about? The opposite of not seeing the forest for the trees. You got it, right? Of course, do what you need to do to take care of yourself and your knee or whatever hurts, but also consider that this might be just a symptom of a broader issue. Same with high blood sugar or migraines or skin rashes or insomnia. Even when very smart medical people tell you that you definitively meet the criteria for the diagnosis of a certain condition, it doesn't necessarily make you a certain kind of person or mean that that's the cause of the problem, because it's probably not. This is a great quote from Peter Goskew. It's too bad that we give fancy names to symptoms that are related to the site of the pain instead of the source. In order to get well and stay that way, we must learn to be skeptical of any chronic pain treatment that narrowly focuses on the joint or area that is hurting. Amen. Yes, we have a cultural obsession with imaging the site of the pain and often finding visible damage. But that doesn't mean it's the source of the problem. And if you have been injured, just fixing the damage or getting the inflammation at the site to go down is good, but it's not enough. Knees are frequently injured, but not because they're inherently vulnerable or our activities are inherently knee dangerous. When we develop the skill of thinking bigger, we have a better long-term plan for staying injury and pain-free for a long time. Okay, number 2 on my list is that pain is your friend, maybe your frenemy. Do you love the sound of car alarms? I can't imagine that there's anyone who would say yes to that. I've met a few people who say they like pain. Like I used to work with this guy who would spray alcohol in his paper cuts on purpose. And once he had a girl taser his calf because he liked pain. So weird. I'd much rather listen to a car alarm than taser my leg, but neither of them are welcome in my life. I feel like car alarms are kind of a normal background sound in our society, and we've all gotten pretty good at attempting to tune them out. Have you ever gone running guns blazing to catch a thief when you hear a car alarm somewhere? Good for you if you have, I guess. I usually don't even bother to look over my shoulder and see what's going on. Pain is kind of like our body's car alarm. Heads up, something is not right here. But too often we focus on just muting or muffling the sound of the siren. You do have to do that to not go crazy. But if you don't want it to keep coming back, you need to find the source that keeps tripping the alarm system. Peter Goskew says, I've never seen arthritis develop in a joint that was previously active and properly aligned. Never. Moderate regular exercise and musculoskeletal alignment in young people would go a long way, if not all the way, toward preventing the onset of arthritis in the first place. End quote. He talks a lot about how what we call arthritis is sometimes something else, like muscular pain, but even the joint pain we call arthritis is usually caused by musculoskeletal misalignment and can be lessened by improving our mechanics. This is awesome because we're all told that arthritis is degenerative and relentlessly progressive. Sorry, you have arthritis. It's just going to get worse from here. Nope. Cartilage loss is not irreversible, and pain is not inescapable. Pain is your friend because it's there to alert you to danger. Chronic pain is not telling us that we are frail or that our bodies have lost the ability to cope with the physical demands of life on Earth. It's warning us of the dangers of motion starvation or non-parallel lines between our load-bearing joints. When we get sluggish, stiff, or start to hurt, it's time to listen to our body and focus on giving it what it needs. Properly aligned motion. So this brings us to number 3. We need more properly aligned motion. Peter Goskew calls this design motion. We know that our current environment no longer gives us enough motion to keep us healthy. If you remember from previous episodes, we want to keep moving through all of our ranges of motion, and movement doesn't have to mean exercise. We need to keep our body's design requirements in mind as we move. Otherwise, our body starts to improvise and have ancillary muscles start doing the job that our major muscles should be doing. And then the force of muscles pulling on our bones starts to come from the wrong places, and our car alarm starts going off. Annoying. While more movement is good for every cell in our body, it can't be just any movement. Grinding workouts might actually make things worse because you're strengthening your dysfunctions. But so too would stopping all motion. Even preventative braces are probably not good in some situations because they're not fixing the structural alignment problem. Of course, you have to be careful, and you might need a brace sometimes. Our musculoskeletal system is important for posture and locomotion, but also respiratory, circulatory, and metabolic roles. So we want to do what we can to give it what it needs. According to Peter Goskew, his method is 95% effective at reversing musculoskeletal pain. You can take that for what it's worth since he's the one saying it about his own program, but the way he has such good success is by treating people with design motion, which restores health. Our motion isn't limited as we age because we're older, but because we started restricting our motion. Probably without realizing it. At some point, adults stop getting down on the floor or jumping off of stuff. We don't hang from things or climb things. Peter Goskew says the way we have changed how we move our shoulders is changing the definition of what it means to be human. Yikes. We're becoming human 2.0, but not in a good way. The answer is 20 minutes a day of design motion. We're going to come back to that in a second. The fourth takeaway for today is to recognize that your body is inherently able to heal itself. It's designed to work properly and be pain-free. We just have to give it a chance. I know, easy for me to say, I'm not in constant pain. I literally don't know what that feels like. I don't want to be insensitive to people who are. But I want you to know that there's hope, and I want you to know that your body is your ally, not your opponent. Like that old Chinese proverb that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. The best time to treat your injury or chronic pain is before it starts. It takes a pretty incredible person to foresee the benefit before the car alarm starts going off. So it's a good thing that you're an incredible person, right? This is an investment with a huge return. And most people don't tell you that you can just decide to reduce your chances of injury and pain by developing a fully functional musculoskeletal system. It's not what most people choose to do because it's not easy. And a lot of them don't know about it. But it's really not that hard either. And honestly, it's the easy way out. Peter Goskew says, we can solve many of these permanent problems by refusing to accept the view that age, accident, or disease routinely triumph over the human body's natural legacy to be pain-free. End quote. Okay, so let's say that I've sold you on taking the easy way out and deciding now to prevent injury and pain before it happens or becomes unbearable. Now what? Obviously, I talked about Peter Goskew a ton. He's the first one I heard about this deliberate musculoskeletal design from. I think he's kind of the OG here. You can meet with a Goskew therapist in person or online, and they'll take pictures of you and show you whether your shoulders and hips are even, whether your feet are everted or inverted, and whether your shoulders stoop forward. It's actually super helpful. Then they'll give you a menu of exercises just for you, and together you watch as your pictures improve. Peter Goskew also wrote a book called Pain Free, where he talks about these ideas and gives lots of exercises. I highly recommend his book. It has a ton of good info and like pictures of how to do the exercises. Goskew calls his exercises the unworkout that works, and that's kind of what it is. It's stuff that's easy to do, but you need to do it correctly and consistently. One exercise is lying down on the floor with your legs up on a chair. It's my favorite one. One of them's downward dog, one of them's wall sits. It's nothing strange or complicated or anything that you have to have like a bunch of equipment to do. The unworkout is designed to be a muscle and joint tutorial to teach your body to experience how proper alignment and motion feels. It's designed to target the muscles and functions that are most likely to not be receiving proper design motion in your regular life. So an Goskew practitioner or the book Pain Free are great choices. There's also a guy named Doug Bertrand who started a company called Structural Elements. He's pretty new to me, but his premise is very similar. He aims to correct your alignment and posture and improve your range of motion, but he talks a lot about fascia and adhesions and connecting you to your parasympathetic nervous system. You can see him in his clinic, but he has an $11 a month subscription of things you can do yourself at home. There's another book called Ballistic by Henry Abbott. There's also another book called Ballistic by Mark Graney, which is part of the Gray Man series. That's not the one I'm talking about, though I did like Ryan Gosling as the Gray Man in the movie. The Henry Abbott book, Ballistic, is all about the science of injury-free athletic performance. It's very different than Peter Goskew's book because Henry Abbott is a sports journalist, so it's much more literary and fun to read, like a storybook, but with a lot of helpful little tidbits. It tells the story of a man named Marcus and his clinic P3 that trains elite-level athletes to get even more elite, but much more importantly, how to reliably prevent catastrophic injuries. It's pretty cool. Everyone is unique, but when you can properly handle force with your body, like force from walking, jogging, running, jumping, hopping, twisting, then you're much less likely to get injured and much more likely to get to old age with less pain and still operating with your original components. If you're not able to mostly do the same kind of moves you did as a teenager, basic stuff like sit cross-legged on the floor, reach way up over your head, bend backward, bring your knee to your chest, that kind of stuff, then you're doing your future self a big disservice by not working on your range of motion. Movement is nourishment for our cells, and properly aligned movement is an insurance policy against chronic pain. Properly aligned, heavy weight-bearing movement done consistently is an insurance policy against frailty and loss of independence, and metabolic dysfunction, which leads to all of the chronic diseases of aging. Strong, mobile feet and strong, mobile hips will literally change your life forever. Having the proper body alignment for you to stay in control of the forces on your body eliminates pain and reduces your chance of injury, and it allows you to safely get strong in the right places and feel good while you're doing it. Do you remember your sixth vital sign? It's your muscle mass, and I want you to rock yours because if you've got strong muscles moving strong bones in proper alignment, watch out world, you're a force to be reckoned with. So here's a quick recap. Number 1, the site of the ongoing musculoskeletal pain is very likely not the source of the pain. Compare what you're being sold by the medical profession with what your body really needs. Be skeptical of any long-term treatment that only focuses on one area that is hurting. 2, pain is your frenemy. Learn the lessons it's trying to teach you as quickly as possible. 3, use the concept of design motion to teach your body what it feels like to be in proper alignment. Take regular breaks from your patterned motion. Give your body the freedom to move properly, and you'll change your future. And 4, your body knows how to heal and be pain-free. We just need to figure out what we need to strip away or unlearn to let it get back to feeling good. Thank you so much for being here today. I know pain is not all simple to solve, and hurting is certainly never your fault or a sign that you're doing things wrong. But I do think that it's important to know that you can plan and prepare to have fewer injuries and less pain by moving the way your body can be best handle the forces being imposed upon it. Next week, we're going to talk about whether having a history of blood clots is a strict reason not to take estrogen. Until then, do some design motion and don't be normal. Thank you so much for spending your precious time with me today. If you found something valuable in today's episode, I'd be so grateful if you'd share it with a forward-thinking friend and subscribe to future episodes. Let's work together to make strong women who get elite-level care and results the rule rather than the exception. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events caused by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.